Good evening, dear participants, dear guests. We're very happy to welcome you at the AGBU IVC Learning Zone, which is a unique one. My name is Marina Khachatryan. I am AVC Education Team Manager, and Anita Kerminchan, my colleague, is here as well. She's AVC Senior Online Instructor. During this evening, we will support and help our wonderful guests, and we will do our best to have an interesting and productive meeting. Before we go to the topic, there are a few technical announcements we want to make. Those who want to listen to the webinar in English language, you should find the globe sign, the interpretation sign, and change the language to English. I also want to mention that throughout the webinar, you can ask your questions, write your questions in the chat. At the end, we will read out all your questions, and your questions will definitely be answered. The meeting was organized within the framework of our online learning zone, which allows to reveal the Armenian culture, obtain new knowledge. We have referred to a number of important topics, among which is the issue of displaced Artsakh Armenians and their lost heritage, challenges of preservation of intangible cultural heritage of Artsakh, the legacy of the Balyans in the Ottoman architecture, as well as Armenian fine arts of the 20th to 21st centuries, and a number of other topics which you can find on our learning platform. You can go to our website, register, and join us to jointly reveal our culture, get to learn about our cultures. And now I want to show you a video that is about the 5 years activity of our learning zone, learning platform. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the founding president of Armenian Virtual College and AGBU vice president, Dr. Yerevan Zoryam, thanks to whom the educational platform has become accessible to thousands of students. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is fine. Thank you, Marina, for the introduction, and particularly for this short video that you have prepared. I apologize that I will not turn on my camera. So for 5 years, we have been implementing this project on the learning platform. So this, and not only the students, but the general public benefit from it. And both our courses and our cultural, historical content should be made aware for the whole world, for those who are interested in the Armenian culture. We have a variety of materials, and some of them we could see in the video, and they are all in the platforms to make it accessible to as many people as possible. We always need this information, and the materials that we have input here throughout 5 years are part of our general program, and the aim is to for the general public, and particularly for the students, to be more aware of the Armenian culture. And that's the main aim of the Armenian Virtual College. And the main aim of the AGBU is to promote education, culture, and preservation of Armenian culture. So I would like to welcome our participants, particularly those who have made use of the materials. Let's see what we are going to learn today. Thank you, Mr. Zorian. Generally, we host our guests, but this time I have been hosted at our guest place. You probably have heard about this place, and you have been here. This is a wonderful place. I'm in Lusik Aguletsi House Museum, and it is our pleasure to meet Gayane Samvelyan, who is the director of this wonderful museum. She will speak about interesting traditions. It's an interesting format, although it might not be very comfortable. Hopefully, you will like it. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you. Welcome to the Aguletsi House Museum, although you're here in an online format. Well, a few words about ourselves. Lusik Aguletsi was an artist by profession, but she also liked ethnography and everything that was related to the Armenian culture. And throughout her life, she dedicated herself to the Armenian culture. Her husband was a sculptor. His name is Yuri Samvelyan. Originally, he is from Van, but he lives in Yerevan. So together, they created this wonderful platform. And Lusik Aguletsi actually always used to say that she started to collect because of the fear of losing the artifacts. And her house is now currently a museum. And the museum hosts the works of the family members. These are 5 generations of family members who have our engaged in culture, and it also includes the Sikagoletsi's collection. It's all the museum tells us about the life of the Armenians in different periods, not only Armenians, different peoples, but what unites these items is they were all used by Armenian families. These artifacts were obtained from Armenian families, so these are objects that Armenians used in their daily life, and hence maybe we can call it a museum of Armenian lifestyle, way of life. So we have dresses, jewelry, old carpets, furniture, books, and so on and so forth. Also, certain artifacts that date back to the period before Christ. And we have a vast collection of dresses, Armenian costumes, and including costumes that have been authored by Lusik Aguletsi. So we have a very large collection. On your screen you can see Agulis because Lusik Aguletsi was from Agulis. She was born there. And later she took Agulis as her nickname, because her surname is Harutyunyan. She's Lusik Harutyunyan. Later, she adopted her husband's surname, Samvelyan, and later she took Aguletsi, which comes from Agulis, the place where she was born. She was 8 years old when they had to leave Agulis, although later, for a very long time, she would visit her grandparents, and after they left Agolis, she would go there and take photos there. Last time she visited there in 1986, and she was arrested during that visit because she was taking photos of our Armenian churches, houses, and they told her, "Are you taking photos later to say that it's all yours?" And so 1986 was her last visit to Agulis. But Agulis would accompany her everywhere, day and night. No day passed by when she wouldn't remember Agulis, the trees that grew there, the fruits that grew on those trees, the nature. So Agulis accompanied her until she died. And very often she would say, "I collect these items because I'm afraid we will lose them." Because very often you can see how cultural values are lost. They appear in garbage bins because not all the people can really appreciate their value. She brought a lot of stuff from Agulis because she could see how the items used in Armenian families would appear in the hands of foreigners who would either destroy them, just like they are trying to destroy the Armenian trace, or they would just appropriate them. And in a number of museums in the world are presented, which are Armenian, our museums present items which are Armenian as Ottoman ones. And then in the second time they gathered a vast collection were in 1990s. You know, these were times of wars, starvation, and people had to actually sell some items they possessed, and they sometimes also sold it abroad. And Aguletsi actually also faced difficulties and hardship in this period, but still she tried to salvage a number of artifacts and items, restore them. And many of these items are now currently in our museum. We present their history because there is an issue of recognition now. We have to know our roots, our culture, to be able to be more confident and build our future with that confidence. That's the concept behind the tree of life, that we should be based on our roots, on our history, and live our present with that knowledge and move forward towards the future. So that's the concept of the tree of life we want to introduce into the culture. I want to speak a little bit about the holidays and rituals. In general, holidays and rituals create an environment which leads to self-awareness of a person, because during those holidays people would actually sing, dance, serve ritual food, and before people used to be participants in during this holiday, starting from harvesting of the food, food preparation, and so on and so forth. So people would gather and uh, celebrate the holidays. So it's our internal belief towards those holidays, towards those rituals. So people would actually have, each of the family members had their function during the holidays. And of course, this spiritual component was also important because it was also about self purification. And it was important for people to be kind on those days. That is, open their, speak in as sweet manner as possible, and try to clean up, purify, and eliminate the disputes and the problems that were there between the people. So people had to uh, become friends during the holidays, forget about enmity. Of course, the holidays will change, their names would change, but the most important thing was that people loved each other, they were happy, and they were unified. I want to speak a little bit about the winter holidays. Let's start with St. Sarkis. St. Sarkis was uh, was the one who supported and helped the people who loved each other, and generally the sick people, the soldiers, and so on. You know, our all our holidays, they had both pagan emphasis and Christian emphasis. When we were pagan, we had different gods. And later, when we adopted Christianity, our church was able to merge these two, and so and to make our holidays double layered, if we can say so. And there is an observation that Sintakis was the most democratic god, and when the Christians were fighting against these powerful gods, St. Sarkis would still continue helping the soldiers, the loved one, and so nobody noticed how St. Sarkis was transferred to the Christian realm. And according to the tradition, he would always help the people together with his son. And among the dishes typical of this holiday were arans, kochind, which is similar to the dishes used during Tyarendaraj, because the grains generally are the symbol of the coming of the spring. And that was the reason why these dishes were used in these holidays. They would actually put plates with pochins outside of the home door, and those who actually saw the trace of the horse of the of Saint Sarkis on their on the dish, they were the lucky ones. And the tradition that those who see you also know about this salty pastry, which if you eat it and in your dream you see a given person, then he is the love or she is the love of your life. So this holiday was very popular among the youth. Of course, maybe it's not this salty pastry that will decide their future, but let them believe that Saint Sarkis is there and he's going to protect and defend them during any disaster. Next is Tyarendaraj or Tyarendaraj. So these are the two names used, and there is Tyarendaraj was a pagan holiday when they would actually jump over the fire, and Tyarendaraj is the Christian name. That is, Tyarendaraj means going forward towards the Lord, walking towards the Lord. And this again, this transfer from a pagan holiday to the Christian holiday was very smooth and nice. And so that they will actually take lanterns from the church to home. And just like the fire actually had again this meaning of purification, of purifying. And through the fire, from making a fire, they would actually believe that a person self purifies. And if a piece of the cloth would burn out, that meant happiness. And the families which had newlyweds would particularly celebrate Tyarendaraj. And currently, Tyarendaraj is also the day of blessing of the newlyweds. and and this is well recognized by the church. So, in order to make the turn this fire, there was a competition. A competition was organized on who should have the right to make the fire. They would play games, and then the newlywed who had the right to light the fire would be selected. It, of course, also depended on the donations. So the bigger the donation to the church, the better the chances of being selected as the one to make the fire. And they would make a round around the fire, and there were places when they were saying that the older woman in the family should jump first over the fire to pave the way for the newlyweds, for the youth to jump over the fire. We have a short video. We will watch them and then continue. During this holiday, there was a belief that if when jumping over the fire, the newlyweds should firmly hold hands, which would actually show how consolidated their family is, and this would actually prevent divorce. And it was they would also use the ashes from the fire to spread on the fields, the crops, and there was a belief that this would actually result in a good yield and harvest. And it is also believed that the fire would actually warm the soil and would open the doors for spring. So Sarkis and Barekendan were mobile holidays, while Tyarendaraj is always celebrated on the same day, February 13, 14. So you know what they would say, that this gives power to the Son, that is Christ. Yes. And again, this was about making sure that spring comes as soon as possible. And again, the trees of life were used during this holiday. And during each holiday, Lusik Aguletsi would prepare a tree of life, typical of that given ritual or holiday, and that refers to all holidays and rituals. On the video, you could see that. You could see the tree of life for Tyarendaraj, and below you can see the symbol of sun, soil, this pochinstish, and they would actually spray grains, corn on the soil, which is again the symbol of prosperity. And are there special dishes? Well, from the special dishes are dishes that were made from different grains. They would make pochins, they would make chashil, both with salt and with sugar. They would also prepare harissa if it was not this Lent period, because there were years when it would coincide with the Lent. Otherwise, they would prepare different dishes with different grains. So these were the typical dishes. Next winter holiday was Barekendan. So today it's actually Barekendan Day, and from tomorrow the Lent starts. And today in the evening, people would actually eat the uh, egg, the unpainted egg, and they would actually say Barekentan, Porekentan. They would use this game of words because this holiday is about prosperity, happiness, abundance, and the days of this Parakentan holiday would compare with the period when Adam and Eve lived in heaven. They were free, they were happy, there was a lot of food, they had nothing to think about. And during those days, they would actually play different games, they're dancing, and gatai was a popular dish, halva, pochins, like anything made with meat, with oil, because, well, whatever they had in their storages, they were supposed to finish them on these days during this Baragentan week, so that later they would actually also go already enter into the Lent period. And on those days, people were allowed to do basically everything. And even in case of the strict church regulations, these days, on these days, even the church allowed people for certain deviations. People would delve into entertainment and so on. They would play games, and that's how they would actually tackle the problems that they had. Each community was able to address their issues, raise their issues through jokes, through games, through dances, because on these days people were supposed to be very more kinder, freer, raise the issues, and why not find solutions? And they would actually decorate the dolls, dance around them. Also, thanking by this, they would thank the tools with which they cultivate the soil. And uh, there was also a reference to the Utisu character who would feed their family throughout the year. And on the land days, they would actually approach already Atlantis, so who was supposed to follow that nobody violates the rules of the land, and it's not only about food, but also about code of behavior. And they would actually hang onions from Atlantis, and se- so they would actually paint it in different colors. And this became kind of a calendar for the land. Of course, this was done mostly for the children, but it's interesting how they did it. And for the when I saw it for the first time, I saw Atlantis for the first time in a museum in Gyumri. I was really inspired and drawn by that picture. And when I married Lusik's son, and so I participated in a number of celebrations that were organized by Lusik. Well, no, she would actually start the organizational works alone, but then later we would become participants in this process. And that's why this information, this knowledge was acquired by us in a long course of time. We would this is actually result of long years of communication and contact with Lusik. And they would actually play different games. One of them was called Jajahar, like swinging game. And it would start with Barekendan. The girl would sit on the swing and she would be swung until by her friends until she would say who is the one she loves. And the later she and so basically this was about just withdrawing the secret from the girl, and the guys were trying to make a round. The ones who would make the largest round, the boy that would make the largest round would win the heart of the girl. And also before Barekendan, people would weigh themselves to see who ate more during the holiday, and how later they would also use the scales after the land to see how much weight they had lost. So there were a number of games that were played during these holidays during Barakentan. You know, we should know how people would celebrate the holidays. Of course, we cannot always celebrate them in the same way. Yes, we cannot always play the same games as they did during Barakentan. But we should actually at least adopt the symbols and develop them. So if we have solid knowledge, then of course we can create and develop it. But if we are not aware of these holidays and we try to find um, solutions in other places, yes, like people start celebrating St. Valentine's Day, Halloween, and so on, because they're not aware of our holidays. Because Halloween is also about holiday of masks, but it's not about our nation. Of course, it's a happy. Barekendan is again a very merry a holiday. And it would be great if we were able to celebrate it properly in the future. There are a number of stories related to Barekentan. So during Barekentan, people would wish each other the best, the faith, and they would wish each other to have faith. So when we're looking at the masks that were used, they are all have kind faces. There also can be certain grotesque characters, of course, because behind the masks there was both the good and the evil, but the evil would be punished. The most important thing was this game between the good and the evil, where good would always win. And it's this idea of the love and good that runs as a scarlet thread in these holidays. If you have any questions or if you think of topics you would like me to elaborate on, I will be more than happy to answer. Dear Gayane, thank you very much for your valuable knowledge, for this information. I'm confident that our participants learned a lot of things thanks to you. Those who are in Armenia, I think they will be enticed to visit the museum, and those who are not in Armenia will visit the museum whenever they have the chance to be in Armenia. We have a number of questions, which is no wonder after this one useful information we got. The first question is as follows about Barekentan. Whether Barekentan was celebrated in the same way in different provinces in Armenia, or there were certain variations and differences. Well, I have to say that ethnography, if I can, is a floating science. What I mean is whatever refers to the family environment, rituals and holidays, of course, it cannot be the same across different places. And customs and ways of life differ. And even in this, different families have different customs in the same environment. So even our friends, our family members, our relatives have their variations in customs. And hence, yes, there were variations among provinces. Even the names of the dolls would differ. The customs would differ. The dishes would differ. They were typical of the given province. And very often, the names of the holidays, names of the dishes even differ. For instance, tarehats, this year bread. Why am I addressing it now? Because it was quite a common holiday. So, in one place, it would be actually celebrated during the New Year Eve, January 2, January 3, depending on the province and the region. So, my answer is that, of course, there were both similarities and differences. Thank you very much. Next question is what can you tell us about Michi? Miching is celebrated on the 24th day of the Lent. And on that day, they would prepare gata and they would decorate the gata. Generally, the gatas would actually always be decorated during the rituals. So these are kind of these decorations are very often reflected the emblems of the given family. And this way, they people would know in which house the gata was baked in. Uh, they would cut the gata into four parts, and there were a number of symbols used, symbol of eternity, cross, and so on and so forth. And in the gata, they would either put grains or nuts or a coin to find the lucky one in the family for the coming year. And there was also an interesting custom during St. Sarkis, which I forgot to mention. They would actually bake gata, and the same gata would have different inserts in it. So could have cheese, it could have sugar. Would put either a coin or a key in there. So and they actually distributed the gata among the family members. And this was also an interesting custom during St. Sarkis. And we have another related question. So, did they use eggs and butter for miching kata? No, they would actually use the Lent kata, the kata that was allowed to eat during the Lent. Generally, the common practice is that kata is made with vegetable oil without butter, without egg. And they would actually also put dried fruits in it or dates in it. Uh, but there was another option during on this 24th day, that is on this day of Miching, people were allowed to eat eggs. That was just on that day. And so, but mostly the Miching gata was baked with Lent ingredients. Next question, Barekendan did it have a pagan origin, and how was it accepted by the church, and what changes were made by the church? As I mentioned from in the beginning, Barekendan would symbolize the status of Adam and Eve in heaven, and from it's a holiday that comes from the old times, and it didn't change much, I have to tell you. Just like it was celebrated in the old times, it's basically now celebrated in our days. Just it's this transition to Lent. Those winter holidays, be it St. Sarkis, Tyarendaraj, or Barekendan, were holidays that would prepare the coming of the spring. And I have to tell you that in the old times, this was the symbol of the coming of spring. And now, of course, there are changes. Tyarendaraj is about moving forward, walking towards the Lord. St. Sarkis is about the protection of the youth and the lovers. And Barekendan is about going from the winter to the spring. That is this freedom. It symbolizes certain freedom. And after that freedom, we should res- restrict ourselves and go for the land. and we should be able to distinguish between our pleasures and the will that we should display during the Lent. So this is basically a transition period towards the Lent. And we have another question that refers to the dolls. Who are the authors of the dolls? The Lusik Aguletsi is the author of the dolls. She actually came up with an initiative. She published a book called this ritual practice, ritual culture, and in different books, she would read different materials, and she also would find certain doll character names, and she decided to give character to these dolls because she thought that it's better to see once than to listen 100 times. And on the third floor of our museum, we have exhibited a big collection of dolls. It's unique because it's the largest in number in Armenia. And by studying ethnography and using her artistic knowledge and skills, Lusik tried to give life to this information in the books and in the form of dolls. So, and because uh, our people have this custom of burning the doll after the holidays, very few of them have been preserved. And we would actually hear about different doll characters, but the dolls were not physically were not there. For instance, we had Dana Turgot, this evil eye, oh, Shotna, Chechel Kerkes. Once upon a time, grandfather. So these are all characters about which there are references, but we had never seen them, and they actually taint flesh through Lusik Aguletsi, and they are now shown in our museum because when you see it, you have a better idea. And I think this will also lead to interest in our culture, in our customs and traditions. And if we are able to make people happy, then this is going to bring to the relevant fruits. And I also have a question, if you do not mind. Last time during Tyarendaraj, we baked gata at your place, and you actually mentioned an interesting name of the doll. I think it was Dovlat, yes, and there was even a piece of poetry dedicated to her. Yes, so during the New Year's Eve, when they were preparing this year bread, Darehats, they would actually call this doll Dovlat, say, Dovlat, where are you? Whether you are in the mountains or in the valleys, please come home. And every time we bake the gata, we always invite Dovlat home, and we have to do it 3 times. We have to call him 3 times, and only after that start the baking of the gata. And this actually it's a very interesting ritual, and our guests love it. And I assure you that if we are able to do it in our homes, preserve our traditions, it's going to bring us lead to so many positive emotions and warmth in our families. I will tell you a small story if we still have time. In our hall, we were actually exhibiting certain dolls, and we had guests. They were foreigners. Our And our guide was saying that these are dolls that bring rain, and the foreigners said, if now try to use them, is rain going to come? And it was still noon, and at 7, we got a call. They said, we're in the center now, and it's raining. And so these dolls were able to bring rain. And of course, I should have faith in it, but of course, still rely on our own efforts. So whatever we do, we shouldn't lose faith. We shouldn't lose our kindness, and our wishes will come true if we are inclined like that. We have many questions. I will try to read them. I will try to answer briefly. Next question refers to the fact that our Christian church says that the fire does not purify, but when we jump over the fire, we want to say that we are kind of higher than the fire. So why doesn't church like the fire to be purifying? You know, the- anything, yes, be it water or fire, they clean up. So when we have these negative sensations, when we go and shower and we calm down, right? And Armenians also like to play with the fire in front of the fireplace, and so uh, the fire, yes, does have this symbolics of purifying. It cleans up, it purifies. And it's a known knowledge that all the natural phenomena, be it wind or fire or water, they purify, they clean up. And I don't know. I cannot answer on behalf of the church, but I think yes, fire does purify. That's not a matter of discussion. Thank you. Next question. There have been a lot of disputes with neighboring countries regarding the church, regarding the dances, carpets, disputes on who it belongs to. Do we have also problems in terms of holidays with our neighbors on deciding who it belongs to? You know, people living next to each other have a number of similarities and differences. And of course, we loan stuff from each other, but there are certain nuances and differences. That's why it's important to know and recognize what we have. Because if we know what are our holidays about, we will also be aware of the differences compared to the neighboring countries. So we also display jewelry in our museum, and next to Armenian jewelry, we also display neighboring countries' jewelry, and we have done it on purpose so that people can distinguish between the jewelry made by Armenians and made by our neighbors. And there is a vocabulary from Persian to Armenian showing that in the languages there are a lot of similarities. Of course, their similarities are there, but if you are able to recognize yours, you will also notice the differences, both when it comes to dishes, ways of life, and so on. And I think we should also speak about our garments. Currently, we actually use Turkish garments as Armenian ones. And our uh, c- uh, uh, carpets, our ornaments, they do differ. Particularly, you have noticed in the carpets, if you change the combination of colors, it completely changes. We have a rich culture. We have a rich variety of costumes, but currently we are using the Turkish garments and presenting it as Armenian. And this is so painful. This is so sad. And we should actually give an assessment to that because people do want to wear national costumes, and we should be able to create the traditional Armenian costumes. And if we have a relevant supply of providing that garment, people will accept it. Because very often people are unaware that they are wearing Turkish garments. And it's self-awareness is important for that very reason. And we should address the lack of knowledge. And also, we should come up with a supply so that people abandon the foreign stuff and accept ours. Before we go for the next question, I have to tell you, Gayane, that we also there are a lot of people who are just expressing their gratitude for this presentation. Are there any customs that are related to the engaged girl during meeting? Frankly speaking, I do not have an answer to your question. I will try to study it because I'm not an ethnographer by profession as such, and I have just learned the information I presented by living in this house, by working in this museum, and very often such questions allow me to acquire relevant knowledge. I will try to study, and maybe next time I will be able to answer this question, or maybe I will have the answer when you visit the museum next time. You know, Lusik Aguletsi is often mentioned as an ethnographer. She didn't really like it because she would say, I don't have the knowledge. People, the ethnographers, they study for years and they get that title, while I'm just called an ethnographer while I'm not. Although she was indulged in self education, she would read a lot, but she was not an ethnographer by profession, although she was called so by people. She made a lot of things visible. She would actually wear the national costumes, and through that, she would show what an Armenian costume is about, how to wear it. I already talked about this idea of the tree of life. And of course, she would different ethnographers and religious figures would always invite Lusik Aguletsi to their events, and she was appreciated by them. So Lusik wanted to create the visibility of the holidays, of these rituals, and with her own character, she would actually raise awareness. Yes, of course. She was a decoration herself. She tried to visualize these customs through her way of life, through her lifestyle. We have two more questions, and we have a lot of thank you messages here. Kind what do you think? Valentine or Saint Sarkis? Which is dearest to the Armenian heart? Of course, Saint Sarkis. I don't want to underestimate the Valentine's Day. These are also holidays. Yes, I spoke about the Valentine's Day, about Halloween. These are holidays which are celebrated by other nations. But if we have similar holidays, why shouldn't we celebrate our own holidays and popularize them to Also maybe making them popular among other nations. Let's be self-aware. Let's celebrate our holidays, our own holidays. Of course, we should also know about the holidays of other celebrated by other nations, but we should choose ours. So if we don't do that, who's going to do that in the world? We should preserve our knowledge, our culture, our customs, our language, and we should disseminate it. Other nations are not going to celebrate our holidays on our behalf. Although I have to say that the foreigners actually like to participate in the celebration of the different holidays that we do in our museum. So today we celebrated Barekendan, we prepared masks with the different characters, we had a concert, we played games, and the different representatives of different nations participated today, and they were very happy. For them, it's just participation, just like we would participate in them if we were in other countries on that very day. But of course, we should celebrate our holidays with warmth and love because that's what is ours. In the recent period, I think the number of people who prefer our holidays has increased, and that's my personal opinion, particularly when it comes to the St. Sarkis holiday. I think more and more people are giving preference to St. Sarkis and to the celebration of this holiday, to the celebration of Armenian holidays. Yes, they say it's Valentine's Day, but we are going to celebrate our Valentine's Day, which is St. Sarkis. Well, you know what? There was time when people were only celebrating the Valentine's Day. Now it's both. And I'm confident that there will be a time when people will celebrate St. Sarkis more than St. Valentine's Day. There comes a time when something becomes more fashionable. And people choose this option because it seems to be more fashionable to them. I think seems, and even if five people out of 20 start celebrating St. Sarkis, be assured that their number is going to grow in the future. Maybe initially they will start celebrating the holiday in a more formal manner, but years later it's going to be become part of their way of life. Very often we are not creative enough, and young people don't want to celebrate it the same way all the time. And that's why we need some creativity. So when it comes to the Valentine's Day, for instance, people don't go deep into this holiday itself, but they go into the more go delve into the form. I don't know, they use different hearts and so on and so forth. So they're not interested in the symbolic of the Valentine's Day, but in the form. And so during our holidays, we should try to make our holidays appealing to the youth, use certain physical attributes that will make the holiday more appealing to them. So, for instance, children don't really understand what's behind these holidays. So we should also ensure a proper, nice packaging for our holidays so that it's more attractive for the youth and the youth participates in them. Thank you very much. And you were just saying, well, what a good day you had in your museum. And our last question refers to the museum itself. The question is as follows. Are there any courses, training organized in the museum? Well, our tour lasts 1 hour, and even during this 1 hour, people get a lot of information. We also have a lot of master classes, and during each master class, and we have a variety of master classes, we speak, we present in detail the process of preparing different dolls, trees of life, masks, baking the gata, and so on and so forth. So we do provide quite vast information during the tour, which lasts 1 hour. And we also learn a lot from our guests, I have to tell you, because as I mentioned, this is a floating science, and we tell about our characters. Someone is aware of them, another person is not. They bring their own stories regarding these characters. And there is a medieval story when the bird is lying with their feet up, and when he is asked, "What are you doing?" the bird says, You can just see the sky is falling down, and I'm just preventing it from falling down." And they asked, how are you doing that? And he said, "I'm just saving my part of the sky. I'm just holding my part of the sky." And that's what Lusik Aguletsi did. Yes, she salvaged whatever she could. And in the family of each of you, there is maybe a dance, a song, photos. Maybe you prepare certain dishes. You have family stories, which um, you may not appreciate much now, but that's a small treasure. And even if you are able to preserve the small treasure you have within your family, we will be able to collect this cultural mosaic, which is called Armenia. Each of us should make our own effort to preserve our traditions, values, and in the end, we will have a holistic picture of the Armenia we are dreaming of. This was a wonderful ending. This is our last question. Thank you very much. And your words will actually make us think. Thank you very much once again. We again received a number of words of gratitude, both from our Armenian speaking participants and English speaking participants. Thank you for this very valuable information, for this information that will make us ponder upon, reflect in the future. Thank you for this inspiring and very interesting talk. Your stories really showed us how important it is to preserve and spread our cultural heritage. Thank you very much, Gayane. Thank you for your time. Thank you too, because we are inspired by the warmth of our guests who come to our museum. And I think these words of gratitude are directed at our culture. That's what inspires us. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Thank you for organizing this event. Would like to thank all our guests for their participation. We are hopeful that you also got the warmth that Gayane transferred to us, and this will allow us to better preserve our culture. Thank you very much. We will still have opportunities to meet in our learning zone, and also, why not, in the museum? Yes, we are going to be your permanent guests. Thank you very much. Take care, and we will see each other in the future. Bye bye.